Let's read over what our mission is again. So turn to Matthew 28. And Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, "All authority has been given to him in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the age." So this was Jesus' last thing he told his disciples before he entered up into heaven. He gathered them together. He told them to meet him on this hilltop. And he told them, now that I've taught you everything, you've lived with me for 3 years, I've poured into you, now it's time for y'all, just like I've made y'all disciples, to go make disciples. Remember, he told them to now become fishers of men, to go out into the world and collect men, to share the gospel to them. And he trained them on how to do this. Throughout his ministry, they observed everything that he did. The miracles, the teachings, stuff that we don't even have recorded when they're sitting around the fire at night. They lived with Jesus 24/7. And now he's telling them, I'm commissioning you, I'm telling you to go into all the world, to preach the gospel, to baptize people, make disciples, and then to grow them in teaching in the things that I've taught you. And you're not supposed to just do this in Israel, but you're supposed to go into all the world. So this is the mission that we've been studying. This is what we've been looking at. Tonight we're going to talk about how do we live on mission and use the gifts that God has given us. So throughout this series, we looked at how we can grow in the mission, and we do this by abiding with Christ, by digging into His Word. Last week we looked at we're connected to an ultimate power. That's Jesus. We're the branch. We're the vine. He's the branch. And He's connected, and He's our source of power. This week we're going to look at a unique parable that Jesus gave. It's a parable that we've all have heard before. This parable is used for a lot of different things, and I think it's meant to be used in different ways. How we're going to look at it is how we can use our talents and our gifts to be on mission for God. So we're called to live on mission, and we think a lot in church settings that means like pack your bags, grab your passport, and get on a plane somewhere, go to a foreign mission field. That's not necessarily what's true. We have a sign that says out here, you're exiting into the mission field that Mickey made. Once we go out and interact in our daily lives, that's our mission field that we're called to. And God has created each of us uniquely with talents, with interests, with skill sets. And He placed us within our families, within our jobs, within our social groups, our friends, to live on mission for Him for a purpose. And that's what we're going to look at tonight. As we unpack this truth in Matthew 25. So how we can use our gifts and abilities for Jesus and God as we work on presenting the gospel in this mission. So Jesus tells this parable. Parables are stories that Jesus used to help communicate gospel truth. and kingdom, and to show us how to live like kingdom citizens for people that are in his kingdom of Christianity. This parable shows us how God has entrusted us with gifts and abilities and has given us and he expects us to use these responsible. So we have a responsibility in what he's entrusted with us to be used for him. So let's open Matthew 25, verses 14. Matthew 25, verses 14. It says, "For it is just a man about to go on a journey, who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1 each, according to their own abilities. And he went on his journey. Immediately the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and gained 5 more talents. In the same manner, the one who had received 2 talents gained 2 more. But he who received 1 talent went away, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of these slaves came and settled the accounts with them. And one who had received the 5 talents came and brought 5 more talents, saying, 'Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I've gained 5 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master.' Also, the one who had received the 2 talents came up and said, 'Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master.' And the one who had received the 1 talent came up and said, 'Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. And I was afraid and went away and hid your talents in the ground. See, you have what is yours.' But the master answered and said to him, 'You wicked, lazy slave, you knew that I had reaped where I did not sow and gathered where I scattered no seed, where you ought to have put my money in the bank. And on my arrival, I would have received my money back with interest. Therefore, take away the talent for him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has more shall be given, and he will have in abundance. But from the one who does not have, even that he doesn't have shall be taken away. Throw out the worthless slave into the utter darkness, in the place where the weeping and gnashing of teeth." So Jesus in this parable is telling us that this master went away, but in doing so, he entrusted money to his servants. And 2 of his servants decided to go and invest their money wisely. They used their talents wisely. And then 1 decided to hide it away and not double his money. See, Jesus gives us, and God gives us opportunities and he has given us gifts and responsibilities to join him in this mission. The question is, what are we doing with the talents and gifts that he's given us? No matter how small or significant you may feel that your gifts are, he's still given us the gifts, and we have to be faithful to show those gifts and use those gifts to bring people to Jesus. See, this parable shows us that if we're faithful in the little things that God has trusted with us, he will give us more. He will give us a great joy. Based upon this parable, there are 3 key truths that we can take away when we're living on mission. The first truth is God has given us gifts to be used as we live on mission. Matthew 25:14 says, He has called together His servants and entrusted His money, or yours translation may say talents, to them while He was gone. The master gave each servant money to manage on his behalf. And He expected them to manage it wisely. He didn't just give it to them and say, hey, go party while I'm gone. Y'all don't have to work. He gave them a task. In the same way, God has given us gifts and responsibility for Him to live on mission in this world. These are a lot of things He's given us, our personalities, our abilities, our relationships, our resources. God's given us so many gifts that we are able to use for the sake of bringing forth the gospel. So take a minute. Think about what God has entrusted you with. The gifts to live your life on mission. Are you gifted in some area? Are you educated? You have free time that you're able to spend to encourage one another? We're all given gifts and talents. How are we using them for the glory of God and to advance His kingdom? God has given each of us gifts, and those gifts come with some responsibilities. The slaves, they were given silver. They were given money. They had a responsibility for it. See, they had to make an account to the master at some point. Someday we're going to stand in front of God in heaven, and we're going to have to answer with what He was given, what He gave to us. Are we going to say, oh God, I suppressed that gift that you gave me. I didn't use it to bring glory and honor to you. Are you going to say, God, I was too scared. I wasn't trusting in you. I know you gave me the ability to sing, the resources to give, all of these gifts, but I kind of hid them away. Are you going to be able to stand in front of God and say, hey, I took a risk for you. I stepped out of my comfort zone, and I used my gift in a unique way, was able to lead this person to you, are able to encourage this person to strengthen their faith in you. That's the second point. Use your gifts to live on mission. Don't hide them. When we use our gifts, we are being good stewards of what God has given us. See, there's a lot of what stewardship means when you look it up in the definition. And the first thing that it doesn't mean is keeping everything to yourself. For some reason, stewardship gets this reputation of being inactive. Let's store up what we can. That's what this servant did. He hid it. He dug a hole and hid it. I was reading this news article, and it was about a man that passed away. He was elderly. As his kids were cleaning out his house, in the attic and under the bed, behind the TV and kitchen cabinets, they were finding just money everywhere. In just random, odd places. They compiled all the money that they had found once the house was cleaned out, and they added it all up. And it added up to around $1 million. See, what was interesting, when you read the article, a lot of the currency notes had, our money has dates on them on when they were minted. He was doing this for over 50 years. Just hiding money throughout his house. So a investment analyst was interviewed for this article. And if you would have taken the earliest year that he would have started hiding this money away, and he would have just put it in an investment bank account, he would have been able to give his kids close to $5 million instead of $1 million. And then they said that the stock market, if he would have used that in the stock market or to build a business, he would have most likely doubled that $5 million. So that's exactly what happened here with this third servant in Jesus' parable. He hid the money because he was afraid of losing it and of being punished. Hiding a gift to protect it, and when we advance the kingdom, it is not what we're called to do as Christians. We're called to be that light. We're called to interact within community. The gifts of the Spirit are not for ourselves. They're for the body. They're for the church. So we should never hide who God has made us to be. We need to utilize our gifts. We need to get rid of this fear, of this anxiety, of hurt, harsh reality of the laziness that we have as humans. No matter the reason that we don't start, we need to say, God, I'm willing to step out on faith. I'm willing to get over myself, to live for you, to live on mission for you. See, the two servants that lived a faithful life in this parable were given more. And the reasons why their gift grew is because they utilized it. Jesus in Matthew 25, verses 29 says, "For those who use well that they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But for those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away." We have faith and responsibility with what God has given us, using it for the sake of kingdom living here on earth. God will continue to give us responsibility, not because we think to puff us up or think that we're so much better, but gives us more opportunity to use our gifts so that we can bring glory and honor back to Him in a bigger way than what we ever could. Sometimes having responsibility feels risky. Sometimes having gifts and talents feels risky. Oh, I can't do that. That's too risky. I'm just going to hide my gift and just not let anyone know that I can sing, not let anyone know that I can build or teach. That's the third point that we see. It's all about trusting God. Looking back at these three servants, how did the first two servants have such a different view of the master than the last one? It's because they knew that master in a more personable, trustworthy way. They trusted him. They knew that if I use my money wisely and invest it, whether I lose it in any kind of way, at least I did something for the master. At least I did something for his estate. See, that was the excuse that the third servant had. The other two didn't have this excuse. Oh, well, I was scared that I had to double my money or you would punish me. They knew he was different. See, this third servant, you kind of look and kind of think about, there's some kind of backstory here with this third servant and the master. The third servant was not looking at him in good light. He was scared of him. He said, I mean, I knew how, I know that you do all these things, and so I was afraid of the potential punishment that I would have. See, we're afraid of the potential of what might be. This is something that we get stuck in our head all the time. Oh, well, it might be like this. Oh, I'm going to go into this meeting and my boss is going to be mad at me. I'm going to go into this meeting and this person's going to say this, and I don't know how to talk to that point of view. Or we build stuff in our heads that don't necessarily that aren't even true. See, it's time to trust God with our gifts and talents. We need to actually trust that we're connected to Him as our power when we abide in Him, like we looked at last week. He's the living branch. Like these servants, we are all given gifts by God. He has entrusted us with responsibility because He wants us to join in to His mission of redeeming the world. And He uses us to be His agents. He uses us to bring light to the world through our gifts, through our abilities and our talents. One day we're going to stand before Him. And if we take this parable as if we are going to stand before God one day and make an account, one day if we hear that we stepped out in faith, that we used our talents to glorify Him, we will hear, well done and good and faithful servant. The joy of your master is yours. The joy of the Lord. The benefits of living with Him, of being with Him. We all want to be used by God, to love God. By loving God so much, we need to display our gifts and our talents to be used by Him so He can change this world for His redeeming power. So we have this conundrum. And this is something that most of y'all know I was a youth pastor. This is something that I dealt with teenagers for a long time, of breaking out of their cell, and that's something that we teenagers, that's what they struggle with. Guys, we struggle with that as adults. But if we truly trust God, that He's given us these abilities, He's given us these talents, God's not done working with us. He sends us out into a mission field, which is our friends group, our workplace. You go to the same restaurant, the diner, the same waitress that you sit at. You go to the same hair cutter lady. You have about 30 minutes that you can sit and talk with that person. You have gifts that can be used around the church. Just come talk to me. Come talk to one of the deacons. We'll get you plugged in. We've all been given gifts and talents. It doesn't have to just be stage talents. You're a really good painter. I don't have that talent. Don't let me paint anything. You'll get it everywhere. But I know some people are good painters. We have something that needs painted around here, at least we'll know who to call. So that you can use that talent. You love little kids, you can work in children's ministry, in the nursery. If you have the talent to love little kids when they are yelling in your face and screaming and crying, that's a gift and a characteristic that's needed. So we all have gifts. We just need to figure out and pray, God, what have you entrusted me with? And how can I use that to glorify you and to honor you and to show people that I love them because you loved us? And ultimately fulfill this great commission of witnessing, of making disciples and then baptizing them. Not just here in Algonac, but eventually everywhere. Let's pray. God, just give everyone strength and boldness in this room to live out your mission, to live out the way that you would want us to live, so that we can seek the people that we know are unsaved and bring them to you, God, and then ultimately rejoice with you when that they come to know who you are.